I now give the floor to the permanent observer of the Observer State of Palestine.
Mr. President, we are meeting as Muslims around the world are celebrating the holy month of Ramadan. In Gaza, death and suffering can be found everywhere. Food and hope can be found nowhere. The massacres of Palestinian civilians continue as we speak, and we and many of the people fasting had nothing to eat for suhoor and may have nothing to eat for iftar. We are meeting as the UN is hosting the Commission on the Status of Women, and Palestinian women and girls are being killed and maimed, are being made homeless and disabled, are being starved and humiliated, are being detained and traumatized. 9,000 Palestinian women have been killed by Israel in Gaza over the past 5 months alone. Every hour, 2 Palestinian mothers are killed. More than 13,000 Palestinian children have been killed, and tens of thousands have been orphaned. 1 million women and girls have been displaced, and all continue to live in inhumane conditions. We said months ago that the only way to end this occupation-made humanitarian crisis, the only way to spare civilian lives, the only way to allow Palestinian and Israeli families to reunite with their loved ones, the only way to avoid regional escalation is an immediate ceasefire. And I repeat, as many of you have said, an immediate ceasefire. But Netanyahu's political survival requires for the onslaught to continue. And so here we are, 5 months later, with a genocide underway before the eyes of the world and with no end in sight. Mr. President, Israel has violated the ICJ order for provisional measures, including by escalating its siege against the civilian population, depriving them of the essentials for life and creating conditions of famine. This doctrine of the use of humanitarian aid as a bargaining chip has been best formulated by the Israeli representative present in this chamber. Minister Katz stated at the beginning of the Israeli assault, and I quote, "No electrical switch will be turned on. No water pump will be opened, and no fuel truck will enter until the Israeli abductees are returned home." End of quotation. Effectively calling for the commission of atrocities. Israel's objective has not changed despite the denials of its foreign minister. Its objective remains the forcible displacement of our people by making Gaza unlivable. This includes cutting the lifeline that UNRWA represents for the Palestine refugees and displaced families in Gaza. UNRWA has documented the torture and abuse that UNRWA staff were subjected to by Israel, including severe physical beatings, waterboarding, and threats of harm to family members to force them To, and I quote, make false statements against the agency, including that the agency has affiliation with Hamas, end of quotation. The Israeli representative present in this chamber has provided cover to the killing and maiming of UNRWA staff by declaring, and I quote, there is no place for UNRWA in Gaza. The organization serves as an arm of Hamas, end of quotation. Such attacks against the UN, its Secretary General, and its agencies are unacceptable, dangerous, and should be decisively rejected. Mr. President, allow me to make some preliminary remarks on this meeting's agenda. 1. The Council has shown unprecedented reactivity by convening a briefing on a report released only a week ago. It should be noted that for years and decades now, reports and investigations regarding sexual assault against Palestinian women and men, girls and boys, have not led to the convening of a single council meeting on the matter, dealing with this issue as a human rights issue rather than a peace and security question. We hope that this meeting marks a change in this attitude and that more attention will be given by the Council to this matter in an unbiased manner. 2, we also note that the SRSG in her report has said that she did not seek to gather information and or to verify allegations in the context of the occupied Palestinian territory in order not to duplicate the ongoing work of other UN entities in this regard. And yet, none of these entities were invited today to present their findings on sexual violence against Palestinians. And I repeat, none of these entities were invited today to give briefings about their findings on sexual violations against Palestinians. And in this connection, we had a meeting about an hour before the convening of the Security Council with the SRSG, the Minister of Women's Affairs of the State of Palestine, and myself. And the minister, the Palestinian minister, extended an invitation to the SRSG to come and visit Gaza to see the violence, including sexual violence, committed against Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. And here I'm saying in this chamber that we extend an invitation to her to come and investigate or to report, not to investigate. She says she does not have an investigations power, but to come and to report to you about sexual violence against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. 3, finally, we note that while the SRSG noted that she found convincing information of cases of sexual violence being perpetrated against Israelis, she also stressed that the visit was neither intended nor mandated to be investigative in nature, a mandate vested in other United Nations bodies, which have promptly signaled their willingness and availability to investigate all such alleged violations. And she noted that, and I quote, the mission team was not able to interview any of the survivors, victims, end of quotation. The SRSG made therefore a recommendation that the government of Israel should grant, without further delay, access to the office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights and the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem and Israel, to carry out fully fledged investigations into all alleged violations. I hereby declare our full readiness to cooperate with the Office of the High Commissioner and the Independent International Commission of Inquiry to come and investigate all allegations. To come and investigate all allegations. We will see who will facilitate and who will obstruct. I declare here, and I challenge, you know whom, to make a similar declaration of welcoming such bodies and committees to come and investigate, as many of you have suggested to be allowed to do so. And expect from this Council to demand Israel to do the same, since they keep saying they have nothing to hide. They have nothing to hide. If you have nothing to hide, why are you afraid of investigation? UN investigations. You have nothing to hide. And that they comply with international law, even though no single country on earth believes that to be the case against the backdrop of the reality we have all witnessed in the open in the Gaza Strip. One principle should guide us. Let the facts speak. Let the law decide. Let the facts speak. Let the law decide. But Israel fears the facts and despises the law. It has therefore refused to cooperate with any fact-finding mission or commission of inquiry over the years, as well as with the independent experts, denying them not only entry into Israel, but entry into the occupied Palestinian territory in its failed attempt to hide the truth. It even denied visas to the OHCHR as part of its assault against UN agencies. The Israeli foreign minister is here. Instead of bashing the UN for upholding its mandate, instead of coming here and attacking the Secretary General, who has appointed Ms. Patton, and instead of quoting the parts of the report that suit you and ignoring those that do not, say that you will finally allow the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to be revealed. Let me also, in this connection, we once again, I repeat, we once again reiterate, nothing can justify violence targeting civilians. Nothing can justify violence targeting civilians, regardless of their religion, ethnic cleansing, nationality, sexual orientation. Nothing can justify that. Any civilian, including sexual violence, one of the most abhorrent forms of violence. Let me repeat this section. We once again reiterate, nothing can justify violence targeting civilians, any civilian, including sexual violence, one of the most abhorrent forms of violence. Mr. President, Israel has resorted to lies and distortions many times before to justify the killing of Palestinians and their disposition. We have always said that any serious allegations should be investigated seriously. But we have seen how Israel has helped spread false stories, knowing that irreparable harm would be done during the time it will take to refute them. This is the story of the beheaded babies, the story of the Hamas headquarters under Al-Shifa Hospital, and a story debunked in the report of the SRSG that has called it, quote unquote, unfounded, the, and I quote, highly publicized allegation of a pregnant woman whose womb had reportedly been ripped open before being killed with her fetus stabbed while still inside her, end of quotation. So selective quotation is not serving justice. The whole story, the truth, the whole truth should be told. Shamefully, this was never about the Israeli victims. This was about justifying the atrocities that Israel intended to commit against Palestinian victims. And for Israel, the truth is irrelevant in this pursuit. Mr. President, to look at the last decade alone, there was a landmark UNICEF report on Palestinian children in detention, published in 2013. It stated, and I quote, the interrogation mixes intimidation, threats, and physical violence with the clear purpose of forcing the children to confess. Children have been threatened with death, physical violence, solitary confinement, and sexual assault against themselves or a family member. Most children confess at the end of the interrogation, end of quotation. The report concludes, and I quote, that the ill treatment of children appears to be widespread, systematic, and institutionalized, end of quotation. A decade later, in 2024, UN experts expressed alarm over credible allegations of egregious human rights violations to which Palestinian women and girls continue to be subjected in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. And I quote, "We are particularly distressed by reports that Palestinian women and girls in detention have also been subjected to multiple forms of sexual assault, such as being stripped naked and searched by male Israeli army officers. At least 2 female Palestinian detainees were reportedly raped, while others were reportedly threatened with rape and sexual violence," end of quotations. This is the same report that my brother Ammar from Algeria referred to. And that's what the experts said. They also noted that photos of female detainees in degrading circumstances were also reportedly taken by the Israeli army and uploaded online. The High Commissioner for Human Rights found that Israeli security forces' arrests after 7 October were often accompanied by beating, ill treatment, and humiliation of Palestinian women and men, including acts of sexual assault, such as kicking genitals and threats of rape. Testimonies from victims and eyewitnesses were corroborated by videos posted by Israeli soldiers on social media showing ill treatment of Palestinians, including male detainees, photographed or recorded on video being stripped naked or half naked, blindfolded, handcuffed, physically abused, and humiliated by Israeli soldiers. These are not the actions of a group, but of a government represented at this table. We have denounced from day one selective outrage. We have denounced the double standards, the dehumanization of Palestinians, considering that our lives, our freedom, our dignity, our security are somehow less sacred or less important. We denounce all violations of international law. We will cooperate with any international investigation and continue to plead for accountability. But no one has ever been held accountable for the crimes committed against the Palestinian people, not even the crimes against our women and children. Israel is killing and maiming every day, detaining every day, destroying the homes of everyone, collectively punishing a nation. Before and after the 7th of October, for 75 years now since the Nakba. It is always the victim, even when it kills and destroys and steals. This is how they deal with it. It's us. We are responsible for our victimization by the Israeli occupying authority. And not a single Israeli leader, not a single member of the Israeli occupation forces has ever been held accountable for any crime committed against the Palestinian people. With officials with such a record, do you believe them when they come and talk to you? This impunity is what made this genocide possible. The fact the Israeli minister can come here to lecture the rest of the world while being part of a government committing atrocities as we speak is the demonstration of the blindness, the arrogance, and the criminality this impunity has fostered. Israel wants your weapons, and I must add the ammunition also, your money, your political support, and then attacks you and dismisses you, attacks this Security Council, these United Nations, all those calling for a ceasefire, all those calling for the law to be upheld. And yet, they come and lecture you. It is time for a change. And that change starts by ending Israeli impunity. Palestinians are being killed as we speak. Palestinian women and girls who have endured so much suffering over decades are confronting even worse levels of suffering today. There is no one protecting them from the killing, the fear, the famine, the disease, the humiliation, the torture. We count our victims by millions. I call on you again, stop this genocide, stop this war, ceasefire now. Ceasefire now, as it's been echoed by billions of people in all corners of the globe. You, the mighty Security Council, listen to the people. Listen to that call. Stop this genocide now. Call for a ceasefire now. And I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the permanent observer of the Observer State of Palestine for his statement.